You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So Zeed Haynes, let's talk about the dynamic wide receiver on Syracuse. He was a high-end 3-star or even a 4-star transfer this offseason, depending on the recruiting service that you want to use. On3, 24/7 Sports, ESPN, Rivals, right? All a bunch of recruiting services. He was either a 3-star transfer or a 4-star transfer. He's 6'1", 170 pounds. He comes from Georgia. He was with the Bulldogs last season. He redshirted, only had 1 catch for 20 yards, but still, we had high hopes for Zeed Haynes. He had a fantastic spring game with that 35-yard touchdown from Kyle McCord that got a lot of us really excited to see what he can do with this offense. And he was also named the #1 wide receiver on the depth chart heading into the year. So what's going on with Zeed Haynes? He hasn't been bad. He hasn't been terrible. I'm not going to kill the guy. He's been okay. He's been okay. His box score numbers through 2 games, 8 catches, 97 yards, 1 carry for 11 yards. That happened against Georgia Tech, but no touchdowns so far for Zeed Haynes. Here's the deal. And this is why it kind of goes back to Zeed Haynes. Syracuse's 2 top options right now are Oronde Gadsden and Trebor Pena. And there's nothing wrong with those 2 players. They're having terrific starts to the season. And we all kind of expected it from Oronde Gadsden, maybe not so much Trebor Pena, but still. They've both been very good to start the year. Both those guys, though, line up in the slot typically. Now, obviously, there are exceptions where they'll line up outside the numbers, but usually they are in the slot. Gadsden is, of course, a tight end, and Trebor Pena is a slot receiver. What does that mean? Well, Zeed Haynes is supposed to be the main guy outside of the numbers. And through 2 games, he has been okay. I just would like to see more. He had that 142-yard catch against Ohio. It was a deep ball. He ended up finishing that game with 4 catches, 70 yards. And he had another 4 catches against Georgia Tech. I think he needs more opportunities down the field, because ultimately his best value sometimes isn't necessarily catching the ball. It's stretching the field and having that shot for a deep threat. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't remember too many instances where we really saw Syracuse even target Zeed Haynes down the field last week. I would like to see Zeed Haynes more unleashed in this offense, because when you look at the overall makeup of it, the 2 best players so far are slot guys. And we need someone to really step up on the outside. Now, maybe it's not necessarily Zeed Haynes. Justus Ross-Simmons, the Colorado State transfer, he's still dealing with a hamstring injury. I don't have a time frame on when he's going to return from it. I know that it is a very nagging injury. It is a sucky one, because I had a hamstring injury. Okay? I had one. I played sports in high school. I was a hockey player. I pulled it once. It can last for a little bit. Mine lasted for a month. Now, every case is obviously different. I don't want to speculate on how long this one's going to last, but I understand a hamstring injury really well. Bottom line. All right? But when he does come back, when Justus Ross-Simmons is back on the field, maybe he's the guy that can operate more outside of the numbers. Is it Zeed Haynes? Is it Justus Ross-Simmons? Is it a guy like Umari Hatcher? Umari Hatcher had a nice game last week, 5 catches, 65 yards, but I believe his 1 huge catch was actually over the middle of the field. So once again, it's really less so about Zeed Haynes being unleashed, although he is the #1 wide receiver on the team. More so it is, we need someone to step up who can operate outside of the numbers. We got plenty of guys who can control the middle of the field. We got Oronde Gadsden. We got Trebor Pena. even LaQuint Allen, even a guy like Will Nixon out of the backfield. Those guys are really, really good in the middle of the field. But we need someone to step up on the outside because, look, this offense has been humming. It's been great. If they can find someone who can be consistent on the outside, think about how great this offense really will be. This offense has been so good through 2 weeks, and I don't even think they've hit their full stride yet. I don't think they've hit their ceiling yet. They don't have Justus Ross-Simmons there. Obviously, I say all this with a grain of salt, and that is that last week I remember I called for Dan Villari to get more touches, and maybe it's just the kiss of death because then Dan Villari proceeds to drop 2 passes against Georgia Tech. Come on, Dan, you're letting me down here. I still like you, though. I promise. I still do, even though you dropped those passes. You're a great blocker, and you did have 1 catch. But does Zeed Haynes need more touches? Yes or no? Leave a comment in the comment section below. Is it someone else on the outside that should get more touches? Leave a comment below. A guy like Umari Hatcher or Justus Ross-Simmons when he returns from injury. Maybe it's the true freshman Emmanuel Ross. I had someone DM me that on Instagram today talking about Emmanuel Ross. What's up with him? Is he someone they can get more involved with in the offense? Overall, though, once again, super pleased with how the offense has been so far. It gets a 99%. The 1% is really what we're nitpicking here, which is we need more of an outside threat, outside of the numbers. Once again, plenty of guys in the middle, someone more consistent on the outside, whether it's Zeed Haynes being unleashed like he was in the spring game, or it's a guy like Justus Ross-Simmons and all the other guys that I mentioned. Once again, leave a comment below what you would like to see more of from this offense. Okay?